Councillors, this motion comes after some difficult reflections on tonight's budget, and while I chose not to speak earlier, I want to be very clear now, I couldn't support this budget in good conscience. A 5% rate rise in the middle of a cost of living crisis is simply too much for many in our community to absorb. And I don't believe we've done enough to explore alternatives before asking ratepayers to dig deeper once again. Over the past few weeks, I've listened closely to the community. People on fixed incomes, families juggling bills, small business owners watching every cent. They're not saying no to services, they're saying show restraint, find savings, do more with what we've got. I took that feedback seriously and I combed through the budget and I asked the hard question, what would it take to bring this rate rise down to CPI? I was told that to save 1% on rates, I'd need to find $500,000 in cuts. So to bring the increase back to CPI, about 2.5%, I'd need to find $2.5 million in savings. We were given line-by-line access to the Capital Works program, and I looked for the cuts, I really did. But much of what's in this CapEx budget is urgent. Drainage works, school crossings, building repairs that have been delayed. In many cases, those delays would have cost us more in the long run. The larger items, the big builds like Hartfield Park, Norm Sadler, Scott Reserve, they're tied to state and federal grants, and we can't just pull funding from those projects without breaching the agreements or forfeiting funding. So, as a councillor who wants to ease the burden on ratepayers, I'll say this plainly. I had no practical choice. I couldn't support the budget, but I couldn't change it either. But if we can't make savings in capital, we have to look elsewhere. And the logical place is operations. This year's operational budget is $96 million. And what troubles me is that councillors don't have full visibility of that spend. Yes, we are given high-level summaries and perhaps some lower level summaries, but not the level of detail needed to properly test whether every dollar is justified, essential or effective. And that's not a criticism of our staff. It's a structural issue and one that I believe must change. Because if we don't change it, we're going to be right back here in the same position next year. Cost pressures, locked in capital, limited insight into operational spend, and the very same question on the table. Do we pass another above inflation rate rise onto our residents? This motion seeks to break that cycle. It calls for an internal review of the budget, a fresh look at where savings might be found in discretionary operational expenditure, a serious examination of how we grow and diversify revenue, not through blunt rate hikes, but through smarter strategies that don't unfairly burden households and business. This isn't about reckless cutting. It's not about populism. It's about respectful listening. It's about prudent governance. It's about making every dollar count because our community expects and deserves nothing less.